moving into our second story. Whoa, moving into our third story of the day and our last story. We have, I think his name is Vivek. I'm not even going to try pronouncing his last name. All right, I'll give it a go. Ramaswamy. That wasn't even close. Is on CNN here, and he destroys Don Lemon. It is so fun to watch. We're going to watch a good 6 to 7 minutes of this because, folks, you saved the best for last. He is running for president here for the Republican Party, and they're trying to go after him for this speech that he made at the NRA about, in a nutshell, fighting the Civil War to give black people their freedoms that they deserve, that were enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, but weren't really coming to fulfillment till later on after the Civil War. And it was really through the opening of those freedoms, specifically the Bill of Rights and having that Second Amendment right, that really paved the way for all the other rights to really be enshrined for them, because now they carry that Second Amendment right, and all the other rights will flow through with it because they have a right to protect themselves and their freedoms that they are enshrined with by God. But that's going way further in depth here. Let's go ahead and roll it. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already.
I want to get into a few issues, one of them being China. Before I get to China, I just want to better understand something you said this week speaking before the audience at the NRA. Here's what you said, referring to back to 1865. Here it was.
I want you to raise your hand if you know when the first anti-gun laws were passed in this country. Raise your hand if you do. 1865. You want to know when it happened? We fought a civil war in this country to give black Americans the equal protection under the law that we failed to secure them in 1776. But then you want to know what happened? Southern states passed anti-gun laws that stopped black people from owning guns. The Democrat Party, then as in now, wanted to put them back in chains.
I want to pause it. We will continue. I just love the fact that, yes, he said the South, usually in school, usually in conversation and in speeches, they stop there, but they don't call out who was running the South. Who was the party of the Ku Klux Klan? Who was the party of racism? Who was the party that were holding people back? Well, you're also seeing the same party today holding black people back, which is what he's mentioning here. It's more of a metaphor nowadays of oppressing black people, not allowing them to actually flourish, is the Democrat Party. He's being specific here. It's a Democrat Party. If you want two great books on this, they're both by Dinesh D'Souza. The first one is called The Big Lie, and the second one is called Hillary's America. Phenomenal books, destroys the Democrat Party, and the lie that they spread about the big switch is that the racists went to the Republican Party and those that were non-racist went to the Democrat Party. It's a big lie, folks. Go ahead and read about it. Again, it's Dinesh D'Souza, called The Big Lie or Hillary's America, both by Dinesh D'Souza. Let's continue.
As in now, that's quite an accusation about the current Democratic Party. Who and what were you referring to?
I was referring to Joe Biden and his expression of wanting to put them back in chains, dating back to Lyndon Johnson. I think Lyndon Johnson's so-called Great Society was one of the greatest misnomers in American political history, where even back then in the 1960s, 70% plus of black kids were born into two-parent homes. Today, that number is less than 30% in the opposite direction. The very policies that we implemented in this country in the name of helping black Americans have actually been disastrous for black Americans and all Americans. And I think that that's something that we need to wake up to.
In 1865, you were talking about the black codes, right?
That's right.
Passed, enacted to make it a crime for a black person to carry a gun in the South. But you're equating that to the current president? You're referring to economic chains? What are you saying?
Well, I was referring to Joe Biden's, I think, ill-chosen expression to say they're the party that wants to put you back into chains. What I'm actually saying is that if you look at the policies of the modern Democratic Party.
About Democrats.
Absolutely. So what I'm saying is that actually it's policies like that of Lyndon Johnson and Joe Biden that are actually holding black Americans back.
The war on poverty?
Yes, and in particular, his Great Society, where he actually created incentives in the family, where if you're a family, you could actually get more money by not having the father in the home. Guess what you get? You get what you pay for. And I think it's been really bad for the black community. I think it's really bad for all Americans.
Quick question for all of you, and whenever I ask you a question, I'm being genuine for wanting your response. Do you think when we as Republicans or just people in general, it could be on any topic, do you think that Democrats just aren't able to make connections to what people are saying? Because the reason why I bring this up is when a Democrat lays out what they're saying and they're making the connections, I can actually understand their argument. I can fully understand it. They don't understand the holes that they're making, but I can understand the connections and the reasoning that they're trying to create in their mind, even though it doesn't always work out. Are they just incapable of actually seeing the connections that he's making? Let me know in the comment section below, because I've always wondered this. Are they playing dumb? Is it an act? Or is it an ego thing that they don't want to accept? Or they're just incapable of seeing the connections that he's making here? Again, let me know in the comment section below.
Do you have anything on this before I move on to China?
I don't see what one has to do with the other, but go on. I took up a lot of time with Fox.
Oh, it's fine. We have time.
I don't really see what one has to do with the other, especially consider and using the Civil War to talk about black Americans. That war was not fought for black people to have guns. That's not.
That war was fought for black.
I mean, it partially was, right? I mean, that was part of the freedoms that they would get, is the Second Amendment. So the fact that he can't make this connection, that was just the one of many of the freedoms that he would get. And that's what it was why it was fought for, was for them to have the freedoms that were enshrined in the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights.
People to have freedoms in this country.
Yeah.
Actually, that's why the Civil War was fought.
Okay.
And the sad
that
part about
wasn't fought for black people to have guns. I think.
Actually, you know, funny fact is, black people did not get to enjoy the other freedoms until their Second Amendment rights were secured.
Correct.
And I think that that's one of the lessons that we learned.
Still aren't allowed to enjoy the freedoms.
I disagree with you on that, Don. I disagree with you. And I think you're doing a disservice to our country by failing to recognize the fact that we have equality before the law.
And you live in this country, then you can disagree with me. But we're not. You mentioned that we have three different shades
Don, I
of
think we have to be able to
here.
talk about these issues in the open, regardless of the color of our skin. Black Americans today, to say that, compare that to 1865 and 1964,
I think for you to compare it to
absolutely
1865 and
have equal rights in this country.
actually, I think it's insulting to black people. It's insulting to me as an African American. I don't want to sit here and argue with you because it's infuriating.
He doesn't want to sit there and argue with him because he's getting destroyed right now with facts. If you notice, Don Lemon's going with the character argument. And rather than putting the character argument necessarily by name calling, Vivek, I think is his name or whatever, it doesn't matter. He's putting the argument basically on himself, on a characteristic, going, well, I'm a black person. You've never been in my skin. You don't have my skin color, which, by the way, the tones of the skin color aren't that far off. I believe he's Indian, and then obviously Don Lemon is black. But regardless of the point that's being made is Don Lemon's going on a pure argument of characteristic on, well, I'm a black man. You don't know the situations I've been in. It's all anecdotal, where you have the other gentleman here presenting actual facts and historical facts and saying black people have the freedoms. And it's the policies that were instituted by the Democrat Party going all the way back to 1865 and therefore forward that are actually oppressing black people, but you don't want to acknowledge those very things, which is a metaphorical plantation, which has been called out by Candace Owens and Dinesh D'Souza. But for some reason, again, it's crazy to me that he actually can't make these connections. And he's on a talk show. He's going to talk to us about not having freedoms. You got to love this whole point. And I know I'm going on a rant here, but the Democrat Party are constantly going, well, we're oppressed. Black people are oppressed. Black people can't do this. You're holding us down. But the same people that are saying that are the celebrities, right? The millionaires. They're the senators, right? The president, like Barack Obama, or the attorney general, like Eric Holder, or Don Lemon of CNN, literally has his own show, or at least is on a show. It's insane. The people are telling us that they're oppressed are like higher than all of us in society, higher in merit than all of us. But they're being oppressed.
For you to put those things together, it's not right. Your telling of history is wrong. What
part of the history was wrong?
What part of the history was wrong? That the Civil War was fought. You're making people think that the Civil War was fought for black people, only for black people to get guns and for black people to have.
The Civil War was fought for black people in this country to get freedoms, a noble mission, and I think that even after we succeeded, we had to actually secure those freedoms.
To reduce it in a speech at the NRA to say you're making people think, or you're trying to say that black people to get guns, that was the reason that you're there at the NRA. That was the reason for.
That's not what he said. That's why I played it specifically when she was talking about, hey, let's cut to his speech at the NRA. That's not what he said. He said that the Civil War was there to fight to give black people the freedoms. One of those freedoms that they would have received was the right to bear arms and the freedom of speech, as well as various other rights. Now, you could say at that specific exact moment in time, they may have not received those. It took some time for history to evolve and people's perceptions and certain stereotypes and discrimination, all that stuff to formulate. Things take time, which is a misunderstanding of the Democrats and many people in history, that going back to when the Declaration of Independence was written, the founding fathers wanted to give black people rights, the same rights of of that were enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, the right to liberty, right? All the rights that basically the white people had at that time as well, but they wanted to give it to them, and they knew that it would take some time to get there, and they had to make a decision. Do we have a country, or do we have no country, but somehow we're going to have a government where we can give some rights to everybody, but they're not going to have those rights because we don't have a government. So they had to create that time, and they knew that time was going to come when these people, meaning black people, would get those rights. And thank God they did. And it was a bunch of white people that fought for those rights, by the way. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they got it. And they have it today.
For the Civil War,
It is a
that's
fact.
reductive.
It's not
and I think
reductive,
it's
Don.
insulting. There are a whole plethora of reasons that for
Look,
the Civil
with
War.
due respect,
including-
I find your explanation reductive and actually insulting, including to black Americans, to say that black people today, compared to 1964, 1865, haven't made progress in part because of the freedoms we secured. And the Second Amendment was
Black
part
people,
of what secured
hang on,
that
please.
freedom.
I cannot keep a thought if you guys are talking to me in my ear. So hang on one second. So to say that black people, say what you said again.
Black people secured their freedoms after the Civil War. It is a historical fact, Don. Just study it. Only after their Second Amendment rights were secured.
They
That's
were
a
not
fact.
secured their freedoms after the Civil War. That is not, you are discounting Reconstruction. You're discounting a whole host of things that happened after the Civil War when it comes to African Americans, including the whole reason that the Civil Rights Movement happened is because black people did not secure their freedoms after the Civil War, and that things turned around. People tried to change the freedoms that were supposed to
And you
happen
know how they
after the
got
Civil
it?
War
They got their
and
Second Amendment
Reconstruction.
rights, and they actually got the NRA played a big role in that. But today, Don, the
NRA did not play a big role
absolutely,
in
they
that.
trained
That
black Americans
is
how to
a
use
lie.
firearms.
That's a lie. That's not. The
It's
NRA
act-
did not play a big role in
This
that.
is just historical fact. But
It's
Don,
not a historical fact.
the part that I
Just
find
because you say it's historical
the
fact,
part that
it's
I
not
find
historical fact.
insulting is when you say today black Americans don't have those rights after we have
The
gone
fact
through
that I find
civil rights
insulting
revolution
is
in this
that
country.
You are sitting here telling an African American about the rights and what you find insulting about the way I live, the skin I live in every day.
Here's where you and I
know
have
the
a different
freedoms
point
that
of view.
black and white that
That argument just gets so tiring. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what type of discrimination I've had. You don't know the racism that I've experienced, as if nobody out there's ever experienced racism, as if I've never experienced racism, as if I've never been discriminated against, as if I've never had stereotypes labeled on me. It's just like, it's so tiring. Like you've never been in my shoes. So I have to be in somebody's shoes to be able to make an assessment about something is ridiculous. I don't have to have cancer to know that cancer is bad and to have empathy for somebody that has cancer because I know it's bad. You can read books about things and have a full understanding of it. But, this is, again, the argument that's always pushed,
black people don't have in this country and that black people do have.
Well, here's where you and I have a different point of view. I think we should be able to express our views regardless of the color of our skin. We should have this debate
I'm not saying you
without
shouldn't
me
express your
regarding
views,
you as a
but I think
black
it's
man,
insulting that
but
you're
me
sitting
regarding you
here,
as a fellow citizen.
that you're
That's what I
sitting
think we
here,
should see.
whatever ethnicity you are, explaining to me
Whatever ethnicity
about
I am, I'll
what
tell
it's
you-
like to be black in
Whatever
America.
ethnicity I am, I'll tell
sorry.
you what I am. I'm an Indian American. I'm proud of it. But I think we should have this debate. Black, white, doesn't matter.
I think we should have this
on
debate.
the
but I think
content
you should-
of the
if you're gonna
ideas.
do it, you should do it in an honest way and in a
I
fair
think-
way. And what you're doing is not an honest and fair way. Okay? But we appreciate you coming on.
With
Thank
due
you for
respect,
that.
Don, I look forward
Thank
to
you very
continuing
much.
that
I appreciate
conversation.
it. We'll
Thank
continue
you.
the conversation.
Thank you.
If you don't think that he's honest and fair, then why are you bringing him on your show? I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.